So, been a while since I've done one of these. This is just going to be a journal. Because I don't feel like writing right now. Because my brain's all a mess. Because this is such bullshit. So, just merely pointing out that people are people, like, the initial conversation that I had went well. Like, they got heated, but, like, eventually they were like, you know what? Yeah, because I wasn't disagreeing with them on their points. I was like, oh yeah, that sucks. There were people during the thing that happened. I'm not even sure if we can even name the event. It'll probably be one of the things that ends up bananaed. Oh, and if you think that the Big G doesn't do that, you're wrong, because they do. I've actually been shadow bananaed for years. All these people on TikTok talking about this, and I'm like, first time? I mean, I have videos on Google, on YouTube, that have 0 views. That are out there. They're public. They have 0 views. I mean, Gene is subscribed to me on everything, and he seldom even gets notifications that I post. And he's supposed to get notifications of everything. They don't send notifications to people that are actually subscribed to me on YouTube. I am so thoroughly shadow bananaed. It is, they don't want me to ever get seen by enough people for it to matter. Like, I am actively being repressed on YouTube. And the thing is, I'm not special for that. It's actually happening to a lot of people. But I had this person accuse me of being a conservative. Like, they keep on circling back, trying to, like, bring it back to accusing me of being MAGA, and I'm like, I am not MAGA. I have actually argued with family members, people I love, people who are nothing but supportive to me. Even if, I mean, it's a little different because I didn't even meet these people until I was an adult. But, like, they're nothing but supportive. And we've actually, like, had, like, lovingly conflicting conversations about this. Where, in the end, we've had to be like, you know what, we'll just revisit this another day. Let's just talk about something else for a little bit. And we will circle back to it. And I can't let it drop. Because it's too important to let it drop, and they still love me anyway. Unlike my mother's side, who most of them just kind of wrote me off for being born. Even as a baby, like, they had every opportunity to know me, and they just never wanted to. Yeah. Anyway, I've argued with people I love, like, so much over this. Like, people I am too afraid to tell that I am pagan because I am so terrified of how they'll react, especially my great uncle, who is a preacher. He's a pastor, a reverend. And he denied that this was because of me, but he was very haggard, and I worded a question to him, kind of like seeing how safe it would be to tell him that I wasn't of his faith with a hypothetical question, and that hypothetical question resulted in him posting a sermon within a very short period of time. It was clearly not the one that he had planned. He kind of, he looked very different in that than he usually does. He denied that it was because of me, but at the same time, it very specifically pertained to the types of questions that I had been asking him. Just the idea that someone that I knew could have been asking a similar question, and that I wasn't immediately shutting them out, alarmed him to such degree. So, he cannot know an entire part of me that is very much part of who I am. But I have had conversations with him about Project 2025 and MAGA and the January holding up 6 fingers now. I've had these discussions and I am shadow bananaed on YouTube, for Pete's sakes, because I've talked about, I had to shutter my channel multiple times because I've been attacked for it too. Because there are people who don't want to believe some of the things that have gone on to the point. I mean, I didn't just have retaliation from people with the power to retaliate. I've had all sorts of things happen to me because I never stopped speaking out. That is just who I am. I see the patterns and I point them out. I see injustice and I rage against it. It doesn't matter what side it's happening to. If there is something wrong with it, go back and do it again right. That doesn't really mean I support either side. In fact, I don't. I'm a centrist, politically. I am a centrist. I am not a Democrat or a Republican. In fact, I think that if you don't believe that both sides' politicians are full of shit, that you're deluding yourself. Because all of them belong to the same class of people. They all have the same conflicts of interests. None of them care about us. And absolutely all of them would push a button that would kill you right now if it gave them a little bit more money. And if you don't believe that, look at their reaction to one healthcare CEO biting it. Because that one person matters more to them than millions of us. 1 million of us could die. In fact, that's actually pretty on point, because a bunch of people die because of the actions that CEO takes and supports. And the people that, that CEO trains and supports to do these things and pushes, because the numbers always have to go up. They can't ever stagnate, but nothing can support the numbers always going up. So what happens is human life is forfeit so that those numbers can keep going up. They've already proven they don't care about those lives. Those lives are killed by signatures on paper every day. The pen is mightier than the sword. That gun took out one CEO, but that CEO's pen took out a whole lot more people. I'll hear a peep from them about that. You think the government wouldn't? Sweetheart, they've already done it before and they'll do it again. Meanwhile, honey, I'm the last person to support this shit. Like, oh my god, I just want to yell at this person, through a screen and, shake them, and I can't. I mean, I wouldn't do that in real life. I just feel like, it's that feeling of, oh my god, why are you like this? You have those emotions and those feelings, but you don't do it, because, that would be wrong and wouldn't actually get through to anybody, and it just kind of, I don't know, the more force you try to put into somebody like that, the more they, double down and, dig in. And if you try to force people to agree with you instead of just presenting them with the arguments, hate to say this, but the ones you're going to have the biggest problem with facing reality is going to be the Christians. And I mean that a very general term, because some of them will listen. Some of them aren't as brainwashed. There's a lot of brainwashing. Like, for instance, my great uncle reacted that way to the mere mention of another point of view that, like, his religion didn't explicitly support, basically on other religions, and dare I say, even sounding vaguely questioning about the universe. That is brainwashing. His reaction was a product of brainwashing. It wasn't a product of just believing that hard, because if you believe something that hard, you don't have to be afraid of opposing viewpoints. Avoiding opposing viewpoints is not something you do when you believe something. It's something you do when you don't believe something, and you're afraid. It is a fear reaction. It's something you do when you're lying to yourself. And there is no way in hell I'm pointing that out to anyone. Because first of all, I would be accused of being the devil, something I don't even believe in. But I would definitely be accused of it. I would be accused of being so many things. I would be completely and utterly demonized. That's the first of all. And second of all, what value would it even serve? Sometimes people are so dug in about some things, you gotta pick your battles. Like, do I really care that my uncle, like, is brainwashed into a religion and actively chooses to continuously re-brainwash and recondition himself? No. If he's choosing to do that, I mean, he's my great-uncle. He's old enough to be my grandfather. At this point, you know, he's been a reverend longer than I've been alive. What the fuck am I gonna do about it? That is not my circus, not my monkeys, until somebody's getting hurt. Him saying how Trump is gonna fix the country and all this, that I say something to. I also say something to my brother Alex whenever that happens. Now the thing is, my brother Jacob ain't that stupid. He did actually believe some of that stuff beforehand. But he was also open to listening. And then, suddenly, you know, he was reading Project 2025, and he noticed, oh my god, I could lose my job. Because he is a government employee. It's a very necessary job that he does, but, like, his small town, that's, like, the only job for, like, miles. Like, I don't just mean a couple miles, either. He lives in a really small town, in a rural area. And, like, the thing that supports, like, that town existing is a federal facility. Or is it state? I don't remember which. But it's a government thing. It's government funded. The town around there basically exists because that's there. And because people can work there. Now, there might be some other smaller things, but there's nothing that's big enough to support that town. People will lose their jobs, and they won't be able to live if that isn't there. Like, there might be people, like, that have a farm or something that'll make it, but he's not a farmer. He's a security guard. Basically. He's a security guard. He's not a farmer. Like, what is he gonna... He doesn't know what to do on a farm. And even then, like, if the whole town just suddenly lost their main job source, there wouldn't be enough farm jobs even. Like, people would be without jobs, period. There isn't another place to apply. They're just kind of shit out of luck if that happens. That's when he went hardcore. Oh my god. No. Like, he was open to listening before, though. My other brother is ex-military. He still contracts on base. And I've tried to tell him that some of those contracts aren't, like, they're gonna stop existing. And he's like, oh, well, we'll just find somebody else. And I'm like, oh my god. Now, this is the dense one. This is the one that, when they were recruiting people straight out of high school, was the dumbass. And this is the one that I actually spent my early childhood growing up with before our mom died. He can be an idiot. He's not really a long-range plan sort of person. Honestly, you're lucky if he has 3 days of food in his house. He's not a prepper. At all. He's like the opposite. He is very much as long as I have my truck, I'll be fine. The most prep work he does is making sure that his truck has a spare tire and, like, some tools in case it breaks down. Because that truck is his baby. So, like, he will think ahead for that truck, but he will not think ahead for his own life. Oh my god. He is MAGA. I am fairly sure he just... Not only does he not pay attention to events as they unfold, if I got all of the TISM pattern recognition, he would have none. He does not have pattern recognition. Like, at all. He doesn't even have the most basic level of, I'm gonna think ahead and figure out where this is going. He doesn't have that, like, at all. He's the densest person on this planet. He also does not handle emotional conflicts very well. He's not very emotionally intelligent. He's neurotypical. Minus some ADHD, at least they said that whenever he was in school. He does have problems with concentration, but yeah. That's about it. Like, he is otherwise a normal person. As far as, like, there's nothing else diagnosably wrong with him other than the fact he's kind of an idiot. I mean, but also at the same time, it's amazing because he's also an engineer. I don't make the rules. I don't understand it because clearly he is missing some crayons out of the box. But I mean, as his sister, that is my opinion, as his sister. Anyone else says that, and we're gonna have, like, them fighting words. But I am his sister, and I am allowed to look at him and tell him, yeah, no, please go put your crayons back in the box. And he is allowed to respond to me with, what crayons? What box? Like, I love him dearly, but he's kind of... yeah. Looking ahead is not his strong suit. If he had not been arrogant enough to, like, think that I was just so completely wrong that I couldn't be right, and hadn't promised me that he wouldn't join the military right whenever he wanted to, like, right out of high school, he would probably be dead. Because I told him, within 6 months the narrative will change. You'll see. Don't join the military. Because apparently I got all the situational pattern recognition. I have been saying for years that there's a war in my country, and it's not happening with swords or guns or any sort of weapon. I have been seeing it for over a decade. I started saying it a long time ago now. Feels like a lifetime ago. Maybe it was. Anyway, it definitely feels like it. I was definitely a different person at the beginning of it. I was happier despite my traumas. But I'm one of those people who lost everything because of the corruption. And if there's... And even if I hadn't been, once I knew about it, I couldn't leave it alone either. One day, I may die because of that. And I'm aware of that. Or I'm not supposed to say that. It's more like I might disappear. And if I disappear, it won't be because I did anything wrong. It'll be because I stood for something. And someone with power found that inconvenient. Sometimes people in certain positions of power have aligned interests, but the moment they don't, I am a bug to them. What you don't understand, what people don't understand, and I'm acting like I'm talking to a person, but I'm not. It's because, oh my god, I wish I could have this kind of conversation, or at least this kind of dialogue where like somebody was talking back to me and like understanding what I'm saying. Because all this bipartisan bullshit in my country, this is by design. This isn't something that happened on accident. This is on purpose. They call it political theater for a reason. These people are all on the same side. Some of them might vaguely have rushes of conscience about certain things or disagree on some of the methods, but in the end they're all on the same side, and that side isn't ours. They are peers, but they don't look at us as peers. They look at us as cattle. A resource to be exploited, sold out. They don't see what they do to us as betrayal. We have a sitting president who is actively breaking the law, like, out in the open. Appointing people to things he actually doesn't have a right to appoint them to. Not without a procedure and other people, like, looking over it and approving it. So, like, officially, we just have the president giving somebody, like, carte blanche, who is literally a foreign national. He is not a U.S. citizen. Pretty sure he's not even here legally. I mean, he might be, I don't know. But he's admitted multiple times that he overstayed his visa. He never said anything about getting it fixed. Not that I know of. I'm going off of information that Mr. Yahtzee salute guy put out there. And there is no way he did not know what that was. That wasn't a joke. He did that in Germany to the Neo version of that. He knew exactly what he was doing and who he was doing that for. That was a show of support for people who believe in that stuff. It wasn't... And in a country like ours, They used to be known as a melting pot. They used to be proud of having people here from many different cultures and ethnicities, all melting together into one people. That is extremely dangerous. Like, we should be the first country to be saying, wow, no, that is not okay. You would be hard-pressed to find somebody here that wasn't mixed with something. Like, very hard-pressed. In fact, you give people here long enough, and eventually we'll become an ethnicity into ourselves. Or multiple groups of ethnicities, because technically speaking, the USA is way too big to ever be one ethnicity. So it would actually probably turn into several. It's too much area. Kind of like Mexican doesn't really have one ethnicity. They were mixed between Native and Spanish people. About the same time that some people, or shortly before, people came to the Americas. So, it hasn't been long enough for that to kind of become its own ethnicity yet. But eventually it will. Like people before us. People didn't start off as different ethnicities. It's just traits that form over time from living in certain areas and different population groups. In the end, it actually doesn't mean much. The meaning of it is overblown. I said years ago, the way society treats the people it looks down on is how that society will treat everyone eventually. It won't start with everyone. It'll work its way up. Till the people at the top are the only ones left. It's not as if we don't have examples in history. You have to have an example of patterns to know how to read them. Don't you? Sometimes, yeah, but those larger patterns, they exist. We can look at them. We can see how this goes. We can even look at Rome and how they handled a falling birth rate instead of, fixing the problems. They tried this boosting the birth rate too by taking rights away from women. You think it started as a nightmare for women? No, it evolved into that. Because they thought that if they denied women rights, if they acted like we were just property and baby-making machines, that would make it better. It didn't. All it did was marginalize an entire part of the population. There were other ways to fix it. You can incentivize having kids. You can offer, a social credit for it, like China does. I guess, you can actually be like, we will pay you to have kids. And people will have kids. But whenever you start taking rights away from people, you're not fixing the problems that are stopping people from having kids. You're not fixing healthcare. You're not, restricting how much, rent can be gouged. You're not fixing price gouging at all. And meanwhile, these companies, voting with their wallets has such limited impact. Because when they are going to, when their company would otherwise die, our government gives them money and bails them out. So even our vote with our wallet won't run them out of business. Because they will just turn around to daddy government and ask for government subsidies. A temporary measure that was done during the Great Depression to stop the economy from falling even further. Yet another thing that was enabled then that was never stopped. Like income tax. Yeah, that was started then too. See, people bring up roads and all that stuff, but they can do that without income tax. They get enough money to do the things that government needs to be able to do. They're just greedy. I mean, hell, if Congress gave up some of the bullshit that they do, like their golf memberships, which are like country club exclusive type stuff, if they gave up their mansions made with, like these are people who made their fortunes in government. Require them to make minimum wage and take away their ability to take bribes and call it lobbying or gifts. And for Pete's sake, stop calling extorting the government and bribery lobbying. It's not lobbying. It's a lot of things. I can call it a lot of things that are actually, most people know that that's illegal. Like, we know it's wrong. We point it out and they're like, ugh, just calling it a different name doesn't make it right or legal, but apparently nobody's going to fight it, so nobody who has the power to do that anyway. No, I would postulate that if someone really wanted to argue against lobbyists, they could. But they don't want to. They like the kickbacks. They like the money. And they want to think that everybody has a price because they have a price. I have a price too. Except my price isn't money. My price is my kids. Because if my older boys will return to me tomorrow, and we were given the ability to get all the therapy that all of us would need after all that, and everything we need to transition in life, I admit I'd sell out real quick. Thing is, that's never gonna happen. But I don't know any parent who's missing any child who wouldn't say the same. Because each and every one of us would give absolutely everything and anything to have them home. To have them safe and healthy, and to know that they're safe and healthy, and be able to confirm that daily. Just to know. So yeah, I have a price. It's just not in dollar signs. And it's really important to know that, where your threshold is. Because if you don't know that, it's difficult to avoid situations with your price, like what's your price? Is it money? Because whenever they say everybody has a price, they mean money. How much money would it take for you to stop taking a stand for something? Because for some people, you'd be surprised how little it is. Like, it won't even support you for the rest of your life. You can't even invest in it enough to support yourself for the rest of your life, let alone a family. People will sell out for remarkably little. At least I can say it isn't money I'd sell out for. And if I did, it would be enough money to make those things happen. And that's a lot of fucking money. That would be a lot of zeros. Because none of that process would be cheap. I would be going up against, like, so much shit. And they would draw it out. They would try to argue, like, a bunch of things. And it would be a whole thing. Like, there would be no quick way of handling it. We are dealing with a state where I was told at filing that they just wouldn't file it. The judge says you can't do that. You need a lawyer to do that. Well, I didn't have one. I even brought up the law book. I pointed to the page where it said I could do that. I am not a stupid person. Here's the thing, though. You could be the most intelligent person in the world. And still feel stupid sometimes. It's normal. My IQ, with extra liquid on my brain, was still above the average, so, like, my IQ was fine. It wasn't surprising to me that that was an answer. Without that on my brain, you'd be surprised. Someone with ADHD has, like, all the tabs. Like, if their brain was a browser, it would have, like, 50 tabs open, a bunch of them frozen, and not knowing where the music is coming from type situation. Mine is, I have 50 tabs open, and I know where each of them are. I can focus on them. And if I need to, I can change that focus. But there's a strong desire in me for justice, for truth, for honesty, and for people to stop falling into the fucking trap. That is just rich elite people playing everybody like puppets. You have the right and the left, the Democrats and the Republicans. And right now, I will say this, the Democrats actually have reasons to be angry right now. Especially at the ground level. I'm not talking about the politicians, they're sellouts in the first place. The only time Democrats do something is whenever they want something. Let's be real. Like, they're not really left as far as the world stage goes. It's more of like a center position. Our country in general is pretty conservative. Even like our leftists are actually more conservative than in the world at large. And I don't think a lot of Americans know that. Like, left in other countries means that, like, you want social welfare, healthcare, all of that stuff. And that is your hard line. Don't even get me started on the other stuff. And it doesn't even mean that you have to be a socialist. It's just kind of like, you do realize that that's why government exists, right? Like, government is not there to just be propped up by the people because it has to exist. It is there to help organize things, like relief, to help solve disputes between people. It exists for these reasons. So, like, if you have, like, a disaster, and that disaster can be anything from a natural disaster to a bunch of people losing their jobs, to a bunch of people not being able to get housing, so homelessness, not being able to afford food, that sort of stuff. These are reasons government exists. It is not. I mean, we can look at why governments exist, like, in anthropology. We can look at sociology. Like, we can look, why does government exist? Because it doesn't just exist because some asshole laid claim to a piece of land and then started pointing at everybody, telling them what to do. It exists because people formed social groups that were big enough that it was easier to have, at first, maybe one or two people, or this person handled coordinating this, that, and the other. Like, it got big enough that for, like, maybe somebody managed a storehouse or something. Like, it was just easier for everybody else to go off and do the jobs they needed to do the work that needed done in general, and leave someone behind to take care of the organization. That's what government is. It's supposed to help organize. It's not supposed to rule over people. Some people really missed the part of history and sociology and just civics in general. Well, I believe that there's a famous quote in there somewhere. I don't remember who wrote it off the top of my head, but it gets quoted a lot. It says that you need the consent of the governed, basically. Like, governance requires the consent of the governed. Something like that. It is really late, and my brain is becoming mush. Anyway, so, yeah. I think they forget that is not a statement that you always see immediately, like, what's going to happen. But we definitely all know where that goes when you don't have the consent of the government. I mean, look what happened to the Yahtzees. Look what happened to... And I just want to point out right now that my country treated the actual Yahtzees, the soldiers, better than they treated the women who were existing in that country whenever it was invaded. And it wasn't just my country either. Instead of, like, they didn't take it out on the POWs. They took it out on the women and children. They shot down the non-combatants. They raped those women. Like, it doesn't get talked about a lot. And then there are the people that were blatantly sent to their deaths. Citizens of the United States of America who had their citizenship revoked during World War II and deported to Germany. I shouldn't have to tell you this, but there's a reason why nobody here has a story about, being descended from somebody who survived that. There's a reason why that's an easy portion of that history to ignore. Now, I'm a firm believer that we shouldn't erase any of this. It's history. I do think some of it we shouldn't approach the same way that we often do as a country. I think that CRT is definitely something that should be kept for college. And, like, specific things, because you can't teach that to kids without them internalizing it. And that just kind of creates more of it. More of, like, the things that you're trying to be aware of and change. And it's very self-defeating. Like, do you not human behavior? Like, do you not know human behavior? Because it's very self-defeating. So yeah, there are things that I disagree with on both sides. Oh yeah, and hating people because you perceive that because of the color of their skin, that their ancestors had something to do with it, that they may or may not have had anything to do with, because, let's face it, not every pale-skinned person is descended from a slave owner. However, plenty of people who of dark complexion are. I don't think that we should be arguing about this. I think that we should all just kind of admit that slavery is wrong and stop our prison system from doing it. Like, we need to actually stop slavery. We cannot stand on a high horse about slavery until we end it in our own country. And the fact that so many people have had no idea that that is how our system works here, despite being here our entire lives. Oh God, and don't even get me started on the propaganda outside of this country. No wonder there is no country on this earth who will offer asylum to Americans. Because they all think that this is the pinnacle of everything. Meanwhile, we're told that everywhere else is so terrible, so that when we're not happy with it, we don't run away. Not that I could. Now, if I had the surgery that I need, I could walk. But as far as money goes, no money to try and leave. And at this point, I ain't getting on a plane. There have been more crashes in the last week than there have in the past. Oh God, I don't even know. Like, if a plane crashes in the USA, like a US plane crash, it's a big deal. It's big news. There have been several in just the past week. I don't know if I'm coming down with a cold, or it's just my allergies. It may actually be both. You couldn't pay me to get on a plane right now. And I need money pretty desperately. You could not pay me to get on a plane right now. You could not pay me to let any of my family members get on a plane right now. If you can avoid flying right now, do it. If anybody ever sees this, you want to talk about this part in history? It is February 9th, 2025. And I would not get on a plane if you held a gun to my head. I would make you shoot me instead. In fact, I guess that's kind of the point. Another point, too. You know how they tell you, like, they tell women, like, if somebody's trying to, like, kidnap you, don't fight tooth and nail. Do not let them get you to a second location because you will not survive it. The option is basically let them take you to an undisclosed second location. Or, almost certain death either way. You might survive if you end up not going to that second location, but the chances are you're dead either way. Your goal at that point is to leave as much evidence behind as possible. To make it as difficult as possible for them to cover it up. To make them have to move your body, already dead and bleeding, from that first location. Oh yeah, you escape if you can, but the assumption very much is that if you're already in that situation, you're probably already gonna die. So you better fight as much as you can, as hard as you can. That's what it's like to be a woman in this country. Now, I don't believe that it's actually that safe in China either. Because, yeah, I've been on that app. But I also know they're not allowed to talk about the negatives of their own country. I don't believe that it's as bad as we're told here in the US. But they've definitely been told a lot of bullshit. Like, apparently there's a story about our government shutting down everything to save a sparrow that got caught on power lines. Now, oh my goodness, you sweet summer child. Whoever believes that, load of shit. Like, they don't care if millions of us die a year because some asshole is signing off, like, on something. Bless your heart if you believed this, but they don't give a shit about a sparrow dying on a power line. Like, it happens every day. Like, birds just, like, stuff gets caught in those sometimes, and it just happens. Now, granted, stuff doesn't usually die getting up there, at least not that I've heard of. But there are plenty of other situations, like, do they stop traffic because birds and animals of all sorts get run over? No. What sort of nonsense is it to actually believe that there is a government in this world that is altruistic enough to just shut down an entire thing for that? Like, you might find a small town mayor or something, or just a small town in general who might rally around something like getting in a tree or something. Or, getting an animal out of a sewer or something, but you won't find a big city that's gonna shut down for that. Let alone anything even remotely in the federal government. Not here in the US. A lot of people here think that in order to make it, in order to survive, in order to make a living, they have to ignore a lot of the things that go on. Or push other people down to get ahead. The culture here, it can be very hard to find community when people are pushed into positions where your survival can depend on discarding them. If you get the right community, your survival can hinge on that too. The thing is, a lot of us were denied community from the beginning. Like an actual community that acts like one. I'm one of those people. I didn't grow up with a community. Not after my mom died. Not after my grandparents got me. Not in the church. that I was forced into. With some of the people who helped my grandparents kidnap me and my brother from my godmother. The only choice I was given in that situation was after the fact, and it was an illusion of a choice. Because our puppeteers, or our grandmother, my maternal grandmother, already knew what the choice would be. She didn't understand the reasons, because she thought it would be completely different reasons. But she also didn't particularly care what the outcome was. Because it didn't matter, because neither of us were going to end up having a good life with her. The thing is, over the years, I've come to realize that I should have let my brother have his way. I do not believe he would have had the same problems I did. First of all, he didn't have the same problem with my grandmother blaming him for my mom just not ever going into the Olympics after she got out of the military. She was scouted for the Olympics before she went into it, and she went into it to get away from my grandmother. And my grandmother just took that as a later instead of a no, which explains why my mom went into the military to get away from her. It's sad to say, but there's a lot more to it than that. But that's the basics. Like, you think tiger mom is bad? Like, in Asian culture? No. My grandmother was so much worse than that. Like, the psychological torture that this woman did was insane. And I still don't know the extent that my mom was abused. Because I didn't even know that she was abused until I myself was an adult. And I found out because I went looking for connections and answers after it was suggested by a therapist to a family member, my mom's little sister actually, and I found out things. She would later deny that conversation ever happened, as she always does whenever things don't fit the narrative of Happy Family. I could totally see where she gets it from. Because her dad, my grandfather, is the same way. He cannot stand things not fitting the perfect family picture. In fact, my aunt specifically does not speak to me because I left my religion on my Facebook page. She actively argued with me about this. She was afraid of what her friends would think if they saw me, knowing that she had a niece who was a filthy heathen. Like, what the fuck? Yeah. So, that should give you a picture of how fucked up those people are. Like, at least a little bit. I'm not giving more details on that. Because it's, like, so much more fucked up than that. But that's the general just, like, image is everything to those people. But see, image without substance doesn't mean shit to me. If you act like you're on my side in public, but then in private you ignore me, or you're like, oh, how dare you be born, or like, basically you're just asshole in private, I'm not going to deal with that shit. I didn't deal with that shit. You know what I did? They wanted to act like on public Facebook that we were all a big happy family. So whenever they made those public comments, I was like, you don't talk to me the rest of the year. What's the fuck is this? Sort of responses. And I laid it out. Like, I wasn't taking this shit. So now they don't try that shit anymore. The thing is, They always acted like they didn't understand what I was saying. The thing is, I know none of them are that dumb, because I was very explicit. I was like, look, I want a relationship with you. This is not a relationship. This is pretend. I'm not going to play pretend. If you want to be able to do things like this on Facebook and act like we are close, we at least need to have some kind of relationship in private. Like, besides abusive words or something. Like, just... I didn't even ask for much. Like, literally, I was not even, demanding, like, the world or the stars or even a card at Christmas or Yule or birthdays or anything. All I wanted was basic acknowledgement that I was family behind closed doors. They couldn't even do that. So yeah, I gave them hell. Because I don't have to put up with that bullshit. I'm not a little kid anymore. I don't have to sit there while they play pretend and not like they care when they really don't. I don't have to pretend that things that are not in my best interest are. I can do this. If you don't know which finger this is, here the pinky and the ring finger. There's my thumb and my forefinger. And here's the birdie. They can go themselves. So, yeah. If they ever actually want a relationship with me, if they ever actually want to know who I am, all they have to do is genuinely want to know and talk to me. I can't guarantee I will know what to do with them whenever they do that. I cannot guarantee that I will immediately trust them if they want to do that, but it is a process that all of them know is there. None of them want to. It's funny because the people who did this shit acted like I was the one pouring gasoline on the bridge and burning it. All I did was let it burn, bitch. You burned it. And then got mad at me for not single-handedly rebuilding it by myself. You burned it, bitch. All I did was let it burn. Anyway, that's basically my mom's side of the family. My dad's side is complicated, but most families are complicated. There's some good people over there, though. Properly horrified in ways that kind of have helped me realize, like, just how shocked I probably should be at the shit that I survived. But I'm just not, because it's not, because that was my, stuff that just by the mere concept shocks them and, like, horrifies them, and, like, yeah, it's really bad, it's horrifying, yeah, sure. But, like, shocking? No. And that's just the stuff that, like, is left over. Like, the stuff, because, like, most things I know not to say, because I know I can silence rooms on complete accident, because I did it. You know, trial and error, bulldozing my way through learning how to be a person socially. And, like, trying to interact with people and stuff, and yeah, that happened quite a few times. If I had a dime for every time that happened, I would have lots of money. I would never need money ever again. It was a lot. It was a lot of times, especially, like, whenever I was a teenager and a young adult. It happened a lot. And I kind of learned, like, which things to avoid avoid the really shocking stuff. But the stuff that wasn't really shocking still shocked them, and I still blame myself for my paternal grandmother having a heart attack this one time, because she literally had a heart attack shortly after meeting me, after she found out some of the things that happened to me. And I don't know for sure if it's connected, but I don't talk about that stuff with her anymore. I've been really careful to, like, it was harder at first, and I don't want to burden her with it. So I just don't tell her. I just am so afraid that if I tell her the hard stuff, like, there's stuff she doesn't know. Like, she doesn't even know the half of it. She knows surface stuff that, like, slip out when I'm nervous. The sheer volume and intensity of the abuse is not something that she knows. She knows enough to be horrified by it, though. And she blames my biological father, and that wasn't something I wanted to happen either. Because I assume him being off in La La Land pretending he did not spawn children, and me thinking that he was literally dead, because I thought that the man that died was my dad. Like, my biological dad. And then I guess I have a brother that doesn't want to know me. He's like the oldest out of all the siblings on that side, and he just is done with his dad just making kids and leaving them out in the world. Like, he's probably, like, yeah. I mean, like, he's probably old enough to, like, start having grandkids if he doesn't already. Like, the oldest. And I don't even know his name. Because, like, I was given, like, a bunch of information at once, and I have to know faces to connect names to them, and, like, I hate to say this, but, like, you'd almost have to, like, a photo is just not enough for that. You have to, like, meet people to do that. You'd almost have to, like, if you wanted to do it by photos, you'd almost have to, like, write the names under each and every face. You can't just tell me, oh, you have this and this and this. Like, I couldn't even keep, like, an uncle straight. Like, I didn't know if I was talking to my uncle or a brother that, like, and I was trying to be, like, so respectful, but then, like, my biological dad has a half-brother that is actually really cool. He's also autistic. And he's really into mushrooms. And I really wish I had the courage to just ask him to teach me about mushrooms. Because I like hearing about, like, different subjects. I love learning about different subjects. And learning about the different, like, mushrooms in an area, like, that easily segues into learning about the flora and fauna. Like, otherwise. And it's part of the flora of an area. Like, I'm down with that. Like, and then, easily segues into, ooh, and what is this used in? If thou breweth this one in a tea, would this one kill you, help you, or hurt you? Like, Because I like to know things. I need to know how things work. And then I have another a friend who is autistic, and for them it's computers, like solely computers, and I can't do that. Because I've been in so many situations where I needed more information to survive. My core special interest, the one that like I absolutely cannot ever abandon, is people patterns, which actually encompasses a lot more than you think it does. People patterns is what I call it, though. I can't say I was always good at it, at least in applying it. I'm pretty good at like knowing, oh shit, this is coming, but knowing what to do about it is not. It's really not. It's kind of like being really good at the theory of peopling, but not really good at the peopling part of peopling. Like, I'm good at adulting. That's about it. I'm not necessarily good at making other people think I'm good at adulting, whereas some people suck at adulting and are great at getting other people to think that they're good at it, because that's social skills. Hello? I see he has gone off to get a snack. He's looking at his plate. Oh no. He's gonna go look at the other plates now. Someone finished off his. he's not happy about that. Because he's a grazer. The others like gobble it all up at once, but Lucky is a grazer. He likes going back for his food and coming back, and he does not like having time feeding at all. And doing time feeding does not change what kind of eating style he has. He still gets very grumpy about it. We often say that Lucky gets very hangry, and it's not just that he's like angry, hungry sort of thing. It's also that like I don't know how to put this. He's irritated that the food is not available for him, despite the fact that for all of his kitten life, all the way up to a good portion of his adult life, like most of his adult life, even like because we've only had Maggie for like 3 years now. Yeah, and Maggie's like about 3 or 4 years, and Lucky is 14. So yeah, Lucky was free fed for most of his life, and then had to adjust to this. And yeah, there's always going to be that part of him that just does not adjust to it. So I try to leave something down for him, like enough that like everybody can kind of snack a little bit, but like once it's gone, you gotta wait till the next meal, sort of thing. But yeah. Also has treats, so this is not a people treat. This is a kitty treat. Lucky. I'm not going to leave you to the mercy of the snackies that are left. Lucky. Children, I did not call you. They're like, but we're here. Oh, goodness gracious. Alright, I'll give you some Treatos too. Oh, but if I just give it to you at this point, I ain't giving it to you with him. We're gonna go different spots on this one. Lucky. Around the table. Don't be trying to go through them. It's for you. Yep, it's up here. Kittens? Kittens? What is? Want it? Okay, fine. I'll put it on the floor for you. I should stop this before my computer starts yelling at me that it's running out of space. Anyway, I call for Lucky, and they know what tone of voice that is, so the kittens, Shadow and Shack, came to find whatever snacks had been produced for the grumpy one. Because, if you give snacks to one, you have to give snacks to the rest. The only one who did not get them this time is Maggie, and that is because he's probably curled up with his primary human, which would be Gene. Gene is his primary human, Shack is to Kiddo, Chris, and Shadow is kind of where I am her primary human, but her and Shack are very bonded. Again, they cuddling together, they just kind of show up together, they were coming in side by side. They are a team. They are definitely a package deal. A bonded pair of siblings. Thick as thieves. Oh my goodness. I mean, look. No, don't you go bother him. You get into his snackies, he's gonna take you out. Oh, I saw that. Hi, Lucky. Did you decide to come at a different angle for this? Well, come on. Did you get your paw stuck? His paw's still stuck. He's just leaving it there while he eats the treats. Sweetheart, there you go. You got it out. Oh, no, you can't have my hand too. There, they're on the ground. He's looking at me like, I don't trust you. Did you give it all to me? You're gonna betray me and give some of it to them. Yeah, I gotta give them some, otherwise they're gonna come for yours. Did you lose it? Come on. Are you looking for... Oh, you're looking for... Why do you keep on knocking it down? Just eat it off of the edge of the table. Here. No más. No more. Eat it. She's gonna look for more. Greedy children. The only one we're missing out here is Maggie. No more, guys. If I give you all the meaty treats, there won't be any more. You'll eat them all, and then there will be no more. I'll give you guys a churro in the morning. Okay, fine. After sleep has happened. Because it is technically the morning.